This is Sexy Funny Raw, where we chat all about the world of sex, from dating and relationships all the way to the adult industry itself. I'm Silvia Saige, and this is my Pornspective, answering all the questions you weren't even brave enough to ask Google. Get ready, because Sexy Funny Raw starts now. Hey, hey, hey! Welcome back to another episode of Sexy Funny Raw. I am your host, Silvia Saige, joined, of course, by my co-host, Dr. Eddie, giving us his lovely public health perspective on everything sex and sexually related. And, of course, to my right, I'm having our new guest in studio for this month. Please give a warm welcome to Monarey Martinez, comedian and podcaster. We are so thankful to have her on this episode today. And I know from speaking to her previously that this episode in particular is going to be her forte. So without further ado, guys, this episode is masturbation. Ooh, something we all love and something we all desperately need. Now, I don't want to throw you under the bus, Monterey, but you were telling me before we started this show that you actually have helped train your friends on how to masturbate, right?
Yeah, when I was little, I didn't know what masturbation was. I just found out that I could make my vagina explode. And I was not selfless. And I was like, I have to teach my friends this.
Yeah.
You know, they need to know. And I was like, it's not just about Barbies, girls.
Right.
Like, our vagina has power.
What age were you when you were doing
I was
this?
like around 7.
It's crazy to me.
I taught everybody how to hump a pillow. Yeah.
I love it.
Like, and then it's going to be nap time again and it's going to be great. And, you know, that's just something I did.
I love that because, of course, as little girls, I think a big thing that we do is we start humping things. I was humping couches, corners of couches. You were humping pillows.
Oh, yeah.
I have my 3-year-old goddaughter right now. She calls it pumping, and we tell her she can pump. There's nothing wrong with pumping, but she just needs to do it in her bedroom and do it away from house guest, basically. But not that it's a shameful thing in any way. And I mentioned to you, outside of me humping chairs as a little kid, I didn't masturbate until I was 19 years old because I had this crazy relationship with Jesus, and I was so terrified that God was watching and he was going to watch me masturbate. And then I would, of course, go to hell. I mean, that's just how it worked. But I wish I would have had somebody telling me how to masturbate, or that even masturbation was not even just an okay thing, but a healthy thing and something that we should actually be doing, right? So let's talk about masturbation, or orgasm. I said it wrong. You told me how to say it and I still said it wrong. Say it again.
Onaism.
Onaism. That is a technical term for masturbation. Yeah. I guess you're owning your own body, right?
Yeah.
So onaism. Was that why?
That's
No?
not why.
That's
but
not why.
Let's go with that.
Yeah, I was like, it sounds empowering, like something Oprah would have on. You're like, yeah, onaism. Okay.
So everyone can masturbate. Anyone who has a penis, a clitoris, a prostate, and everything in between, right? So let's talk about it because it's often seen as a very taboo subject, and I absolutely think it should not be because it's a natural and safe way to feel good, right? So despite the research showing that women masturbate as frequently as men, it's often referred to as like this myth, right? That men masturbate at like such a higher rate. But what I think it is women just aren't discussing it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not something, like I said, I ever talked about with my friends. You were way ahead of the curve, like even bringing it up to your friends. I never had any other female friends tell me about their own masturbation practices. Like, I remember even a sleepover, and we were like a truth or dare, and like who has ever masturbated, and like none of the females were like even speaking out against it. Like speaking up to the fact that they had done it. Right. It is a very shameful. You're taught that it's a shameful practice, but it's definitely not a shameful practice. Right. And we almost need it to function at a higher level because it does release endorphins, right? It releases not only endorphins, but what is the word that I'm looking for?
Is it dopamine?
Dopamine.
Yeah.
Yes. So, which is the reason why some of us feel, I'm one of the people who I'm sleepy after an orgasm. I take what I call masturbation naps during the day.
I love that.
Yeah. So I just like, if I start to feel a little sleepy, I'm like, I just go and masturbate and I take like a 30-minute cat nap and then I'm like ready to rock and roll for the rest of the day. Is that a normal thing? Because I also hear that a lot of people have the exact opposite reaction, though, that after they masturbate, that they want to go and do a bunch of stuff. Are you a tired or an energy?
I feel like there's times like where if I masturbate, like, yes, like I feel like it releases stress, which then gives me energy. So I'm like, okay, like I feel like I'm like, I got tension out of my body and now I feel like I'm like, all right, like I can immerse into the world now.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that exactly? What is the difference between some people feeling that tired energy and then some people getting that burst?
That's just natural variation, and it becomes a habit that we form.
Okay.
Right? So if you always go to sleep after masturbating, then that's kind of the way your body approaches it.
Yeah.
Right? And so some guys masturbate and fall asleep. Sometimes they'll have sex and also, because they've ejaculated, fall asleep. Right? But that's not everybody. It's certainly variable across the board.
Yeah.
I also find it interesting that some people really need that visual stimulation in order to masturbate. Like a lot of people need pornography, for instance, to masturbate, or need to, look at a photo online or something. Whereas to me, I'm super creative in my head.
Totally,
like,
me too.
Yeah, I will watch porn from time to time, but porn watching is hard for me because I know everybody.
Yeah. Or you're just more critical. You're like, the light's bad. Okay, her eyeliner's fucked. Like, stop that right now.
No, mainly it's just like it's hard to watch my friends have sex.
Yeah.
Like that's what it turns into for me at the end of the day.
Yes.
But I don't need it. I'm a memory girl myself. Like I can think about
Me too.
sex I've had.
Yeah.
Or like with the sex I want or whatever,
I never masturbate to sex I've had, which I'm like,
really?
I don't know if that's like a weird thing, but I always imagine something, but most of the time I'm not even imagining me having the sex.
What?
I'm always imagining like strangers or I was like, is that weird?
Really?
Yeah, I don't ever imagine my own self having sex when I masturbate, but I'm always imagining something, but it's just like strangers or random people.
You're watching random people have sex in your fantasy.
In my head, yeah.
I have never heard that before.
Yeah.
That is super interesting.
I'm disassociating and there's something I need to tap into, but yeah, I don't ever really.
Now you make me feel like a narcissist because I'm like, in my head, I'm watching myself get fucked. So, yeah. No, I also, like yesterday, I had this moment. I have a photo shoot tomorrow. And so I was trying on outfits for my photo shoot. And it's a sexy photo shoot. It's for my OnlyFans.
Right.
And I had on this like little schoolgirl outfit. And it was like sheer. And it was like perfect, like half titty hanging out and a little tiny skirt, and I had no panties on, and I got so turned on seeing myself in the outfit I had to go masturbate.
I love that.
I was like just looking at the outfit, I was like, I'd fuck me in this, and then I was like, I'm gonna have to fuck me real quick, like
that's
I just have to get it out.
I think that's pretty healthy.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I think that's pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Nobody else gets turned on dressing up in outfits, or is that just me?
I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
It's healthy. I definitely have a healthy drive. I will say, I think a lot of people get concerned that they're masturbating too much, especially men. I feel like men feel like, well, if I'm constantly consuming porn and I'm constantly masturbating, like it's too much. But you did say, Dr. Eddie, when I was reading through this, that there's really no level of too much masturbation unless it's competing with your day. So let's say that you are masturbating so much you don't ever make time to go to the grocery store or clean your house, or you're lacking at work or something like that. Right?
I think it's only a problem if it's causing a disruption in your life, or if it's a problem to your life. Otherwise, there's no real number.
Right.
I know guys that masturbate 3 or 4 times a day, and guys that masturbate once every few days.
Right.
And so, because there's no standard, it is really great at tension relief. It really is a lot of things. And I know that in relationships, some of my female friends get upset if their boyfriends are masturbating because they feel
never
that it has
care.
something
I'm
to
like,
do with that.
Go.
Yeah, but sometimes it has nothing to do with a healthy sexual relationship.
Right.
Sometimes we've been masturbating for 20, 30 years as
Yeah.
a stress reliever or as a way to relieve tension or whatever the case may be. And
For
so
sure.
it has less to do
Right.
with the need to consume porn or the need to do any
Yeah.
of those things. Some people do need porn to masturbate. And so watching porn is more about the end result.
Right.
So about that tension relief and about those things than it is about I'm imagining having sex with other people.
Right.
And so, but that is where relationships can get tricky.
Yeah.
'Cause it
Right.
makes some people feel unwanted or that you want other people. And a lot of the times it has nothing to do with that.
For sure.
You said that you don't care. You've never cared if they like
No.
masturbated.
I think when I was younger, once I remember like it got like an insecurity. Like I dated a guy and he like specifically would just watch this one porn star who like looked nothing like me. And so I was like, okay, well
That's your type.
Yeah, that's your type. And so like I got insecure. But then I was like I was like, but I masturbate all the time and watch
Right.
porn, and I was like, so I would be a hypocrite. So like I had to realize where I'm like, okay, that's just you being insecure. It has nothing to do with him masturbating
Right.
or whatever, but I was like using it as an excuse instead of just like unpacking it. I'm like, no, you feel insecure because her body type is completely different than yours. And I'm like, and that's okay, sometimes we're gonna have insecurities.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's not that serious.
I will say I also, it was in my younger years as well, but I lived with my boyfriend and we had just got done having sex and I fell asleep after sex and I woke up to him masturbating and I was so offended. I almost like ended the relationship because I was like, we just had sex and now I wake up and you're masturbating. Like, am I not enough for you? Like, was the sex not enough? And that's what it got, exactly what it was. It was just that self-doubt of like, I'm not enough for him. He needs
Yeah.
more. But I was also still so young. I didn't even
sure.
realize that like he just has needs.
Yeah,
you
or
know?
like you guys just had sex and he's all turned on and
Right.
he's still got one in him, and then you're sleeping. He
Yes.
doesn't want to wake you up, and so he's like, all right, let me just rub one out. But it's like the younger we are as women, it's like most of our things are insecurities that we just don't know how to word yet.
Yes.
And we're like, oh, that's an insecurity. Like, oh, but it comes out as jealousy, or it comes out as rage, or it comes out as, you know. These
I
other
actually love that you said that you just had sex and maybe he had one left in the chamber, because how many times as a female
Yes.
have we had sex with someone and then afterwards I'm like left with that like, oh my God, but I could come so much more.
Yes. Mhm.
Like it's right there and I could
Yep.
go so much more, and I want to masturbate, but I almost feel guilty masturbating in front of the man who I just had sex with, because then it feels again like you're not enough. I still want to
Right.
come more.
Totally.
And I've done that. I've been in a relationship with a man where we've just had sex and then he went to the bathroom to clean up and I grabbed my vibrator
All the
because
time.
I'm like, I'm still having a great time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I do it all the time. And I'm like, and I always make sure my partners know. I'll tell them before.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, sometimes I can have multiple orgasms.
Right.
And if you come, that's okay. But like,
I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, it's going to come out, or I'm going to be a bitch too.
But
So.
how I feel is I want them to join in with me. Like,
Right.
even if you have to go clean up and I'm still masturbating, I want you to come back. I want you to make out with me.
Yeah, put your fingers in there while I'm
Right.
on my clit, whatever.
Even just touch me like on my legs
Braid
sensually.
my hair,
Right.
something, yeah.
Something to where you're still there and you're still like with me in this
Right.
moment and you're
Totally.
not like turned off by it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No,
So-
I love that too.
Men, stick around.
Yeah. Stick around, hang out. And you should think that's
Yeah.
hot.
I think
like-
that could
yeah.
be challenging only because the expectation for the man is probably
To make
have
you
to
come.
be hard. You have to be involved, right? That sensual touching isn't typically an option
Right.
in a man's mind
Right.
for a lot of guys.
But it should be.
But absolutely, of course it should be.
Yeah.
And so, once they've orgasmed, assuming that they care and they want you to continue having a wonderful time and get you off multiple times, there's the expectation. I mean, the guy is going to have his own expectations in his head,
Right.
I think. And so that could create like feelings of uncomfort,
Right.
potentially, especially if you're not talking about these kinds of things, right? 'Cause
Right.
we don't talk about so much, and then we get upset about things we haven't ever spoken about before.
Yeah.
And so therein lies a lot of our gender differences and problems in relationships sometimes.
Yeah.
I've had guys get offended. Like,
Sure.
if
For
I,
sure.
Like, bring where I'm like, oh, can I use my vibrator while
Even
you're
during
doing,
sex, yeah.
And they're like, and I'm like, and so then I got nervous to like bring that up in front of other men.
Yeah.
And then most of them are like, no, of course.
Yeah.
Like, totally. Like, oh my God, I think that's hot. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, that is normal.
I had a guy describe it to me so well one time as I asked, can I bring it into sex? And he said, of course. He was like, I'm a farmer. And he was like, my job is to build the best crop. And he was like, if I can get a better crop by having a plow, I'm going to get a plow.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm just a farmer, but a farmer with a plow is going to get the job done a lot more faster and efficient. And I was like, I wish all men had got like that.
"Good
You're all
job,
farmers.
sweetie." Yeah, you're all little farmers.
Yeah.
And God bless you.
I brought the plow.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get this corn grown.
Yeah.
Let's
big,
do
thick corn.
it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, gentlemen, just know that we still want you to stick around. We've got other things going on, but we want you to be a part of it. And I love a mutual masturbation. Have you ever mutually masturbated with somebody where it's not even leading to sex? Like literally you can just masturbate watching each other, or it might lead to sex, but I love watching a man masturbate. I think it's hot. Mm-hmm. I like watching what you are doing to yourself, so I know what you want when I am down there.
Right.
Because a lot of men have ball preferences, of like how rough they want you to be with their balls, or if they even want you to touch their balls,
Right.
So, or whether you like the shaft, fully gripped on, or if you just want the head to have attention. Like, I love watching that. I'm a huge fan of mutual masturbation. I think people should be masturbating in front of each other in a relationship from the beginning, personally. Just learning more about each other. I think masturbation is a huge way for us to learn about ourselves and for us to learn about our partners.
Yeah.
So.
Consenting adults.
Consenting
For sure.
adults.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's see. Where are we going from here?
I was going to ask one thing about, because we were saying about like over masturbating. So like, I feel like, I don't know if this is like specifically with a vibrator, but I feel like there are times where I feel like I'm like, maybe I've been masturbating too much because it's like, I'm like, are there like nerve endings that are like getting, overstimulated? Because I feel like there's times where it'll be a lot harder for me to like come. And I'm like, and then if I take a break for a while, then it'll be easier. And I'm like, is that just like something that happens like because it's a vibrator, or?
I've wondered that too, actually. Dr. Eddie?
I mean, I don't have an easy answer to that one.
Yeah.
Because everybody's so different and their preferences are different. What I will say is that there's often a lot of stuff going on in people's lives.
Right.
And so those things impact how much you might want to masturbate at a certain point.
Right.
And so if it's harder sometimes, that you might be having a harder time getting psychologically to the place that you need to be, which is why you're masturbating in the first place, to let go of whatever tension. Right. And so it could be a vicious feedback loop or cycle.
Right.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with those things. I think it's pretty normal and natural.
Right.
And let your body tell you. If it's saying, hey, take a break, then hey, take a break. For some guys, for sure, the penis can get very raw, like it can really get swollen and all of those things. And that's not always a barrier to stopping some things, depending on what's going on. So, maybe listen to our bodies and be okay that it's going to be different all the time. And it doesn't need to be exactly the same every time we do it. And just be conscious of that.
Right.
I've definitely wondered that same thing.
Because I feel like that's another myth where they're like, oh, you're going to like kill off nerve endings in your vagina if you masturbate with the vibrator. Like, I'm like, there's none of that, right? There's no such thing as that.
A man said that somewhere. At some point.
Yeah. Totally.
I masturbate with the vibrator on the highest setting humanly possible. So I'm right there
like
with
it's
you.
gas powered.
Yeah. There's like a chainsaw.
Plugs into the wall.
Yeah.
I just hold my button on that high power. I'm like, aren't we? Is there no
My
higher
teeth
power?
are shattering.
Yeah.
That's the one.
It's
Like
high
a
as
wall
it
of car
goes.
batteries.
Yeah,
just-
exactly. My neighbors, I'm like, she's masturbating again. Yeah, it's a little tiny earthquake.
But it's so healthy for you. I mean,
It is.
Not only is it getting like your heart rate up, which it's the equivalent to like a light exercise, right? Like it's
A very light. So let's say it's not as good as going for like a 30-minute run. Or
right,
anything,
of course.
but it is absolutely, because you're getting your heart rate up. you're making things flow.
Right.
You're getting blood to specific areas, and then you're releasing a bunch of really great hormones that give us the pleasure and all that stuff. So,
and it could even help your immune function, right?
it can. It does. Even though a lot of the immune function stuff, it's usually in partnered sex more than masturbation.
Okay.
So the immune impacts,
Got it.
like your body knows when you're having sex with another person versus when you're masturbating.
Got
Okay.
it.
But there's still positive like benefits from it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm convinced that that's why like my skin is good, is because I've just masturbated my whole life.
I love that.
Masturbate the acne away.
Yes.
Totally. And just keep
Now we
the
can tell our
wrinkles
intern
away.
that.
Yeah.
She was mentioning birth control earlier. All we
Right.
need to do is just masturbate more.
Masturbate, sweetheart.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do.
I love it. So for those with a clitoris, there are obviously different ways to masturbate. There is clitoral, which my favorite, big fan. Vaginal, which I don't finger myself on a regular basis. Anal stimulation, or the combination of vaginal and anal, or just the erogenous zones in general. Some people can come off of their nipples, or maybe ear play or neck play, some things like that. I personally, I'm a combo girl because I love anal. So I'm a big fan of like putting a butt plug in, and then I will use a vibrator on my clit. That's probably my number one is honestly probably a vibrator on my clit just because it's quickest.
Yeah.
But if I'm like really trying to like set the mood, that's when I'll bring out the butt plug and really go to town, because that will be a mind blower for me. That's like a whole new generation. Are you a finger or are you a toy?
I am a toy as well. Sometimes, like, I don't know if anybody's doing this, but sometimes the water faucet.
Okay.
Yeah. I once overheard my mother's friend when I was very young again talk about it, and I was like, what is she talking about? And then I was like, I'm taking a bath now. And then I would just have the water faucet just like hit my clit. And that's like one way that I still very much so enjoy to masturbate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I actually masturbated in a hot tub once, but the jet of the hot tub got me off. But I've never put my vagina under a faucet.
Oh, really?
So
yeah. And especially if like the water, you get the water out at the
temperature.
Perfect temperature. It just like, I don't know. I just feel like because it's a little bit lighter than the vibrator. It's like a vibrator is like, I feel like a little bit more of like a strong pulse.
Yeah.
But then the water is just like, I don't know, it just feels like lighter and like and like when the temperature is right, I just feel it like physically like in like my upper body as well as like my vagina. Yeah.
All right. I've got a new way to masturbate when I get home tonight.
Yeah.
So
and I'll try a butt plug.
Yeah, there you go.
Team up and
trading tips.
Yeah, trading tips is what we're here for, girls.
Yeah, from adolescence to masturbation to adulthood. Look at you.
We're doing it.
I love it. Yeah. What were you telling them when you were younger, by the way? Just how to hump pillows and stuff?
How to hump pillows. Okay. And I was like, I was like trying to tell them, like, if you go, like, you turn the TV on, like, late at night on Cinemax, like, you grab a pillow, and which I did not know those people were not having sex for the longest time. I was
softcore.
Like, until I was, like, in my 20s.
I didn't know until I did softcore porn for HBO. Yeah.
And I was like, I've been masturbating to these liars. They've been lying to me. And but yeah, so I taught them. I was like, this is what you're gonna do. It's midnight. You're gonna put it on a little HBO, Emmanuel, having sex in space or whatever. Yeah. And you hump a pillow, and you call it a day. Drink a Mountain Dew, and finish your homework, and you're good to go.
I love it. You were so innovative. So great. You were ahead of your time.
I got suspended from school, but
for that conversation.
Yeah, well, because one of the girls told her mom.
Oh,
narc.
No.
Yeah. And I got suspended, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm leading a sexual revolution.
Right.
Sorry."
Wow.
But yeah.
Wow. I'm so sorry. You did not deserve that.
I did not deserve the shame.
No,
they're always trying to burn us at the stakes.
Right.
Coming for us.
So funny. Okay, so we know how to masturbate with the vagina. We've got new ways also. But for those with a penis, let's talk about your masturbation. Of course, there is no normal amount of masturbation. We had that discussion. But guys and their partners can get hung up on whether they masturbate too much, but it's not about how many times you masturbate that really matters. It's how it fits into your life. Conversation we just had earlier. So if you masturbate many times in a day and you have a healthy, satisfying life, good for you. But if you're masturbating where it is throwing off your day, consider talking to a therapist about it, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, because we don't want it to ruin your day. It does need to be a healthy turn of events for you. But I feel like, here we go. I feel like what I wanted to talk about, though, is how we're masturbating for men, right?
Yeah.
But we talked about...
That's fair. We can jump right into that if you like. So there's lots of different ways. It's going to depend on circumcised or uncircumcised, whether you're using lube or not. Saliva works for some better than others, right? So circumcised penises often use either saliva or some sort of lubricant. Mm-hmm. So that makes sense. Uncircumcised, you have a lot more options, kind of.
Okay.
Right? You need less saliva. It self-lubricates a little bit to a point. You have the foreskin that kind of creates, you're pulling it back and forth. That's creating kind of the masturbating versus using your hand. And so there's...
So they're essentially using their foreskin to masturbate.
Some, absolutely. So it's going to be by preference. And so just because one person with a foreskin likes it that way doesn't mean everybody will.
I was going to say, I've been with men who have foreskin who want you to pull back the foreskin and still masturbate the head. So.
Yeah, so it's just going to be different. Everybody's different. And so however they grew up masturbating, that's probably how they do it.
Yeah. And men, of course, you have your prostate, which... should be your favorite way of masturbating. If you are a male and you have a prostate, you should really be up on this because it is how a man has his most powerful orgasm. Correct?
They're definitely more intense, and you feel them throughout the whole body when the prostate is involved, whereas regular masturbation is confined to that specific area. The problem with that is that there's long-running ideals of what masculinity means, anal sex in general,
so crazy.
What it means to have anything in there, or even a finger or a toy or anything like that. So it creates like an environment of anxiety. Right. What if you do like it? What does that mean to you, even though it has nothing to do with your sexual
It means
preference?
you enjoy a good orgasm.
There's a little science part in your hole. If you tap it, then it explodes. That's what it means.
Would you like a better orgasm?
Yeah.
Then put a finger up your ass, dumbass.
Yeah.
I know lots of guys.
There we go.
I certainly know lots of guys that enjoy receptive anal with their female partners.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with gayness or anything like that.
Right.
And so
will you put that picture back up there one more time, Tony? So I want everyone to see exactly what you are doing when you go in there. So when you do enter an anus with your hand, you're doing like the come hither motion with your finger. That's how you're going to hit the prostate.
You really want to wrap your hand the opposite direction because it's towards the front.
Right.
And so what you'll notice in this picture is that there's a small layer. The rectum lining is between the finger and the prostate. So what you're actually feeling is through that lining.
Okay.
So you're not on the prostate directly.
Gotcha.
And so if you're masturbating, if you're using any toys and tools and everything, that's as far as you have to go, which is only a couple of inches in. Whereas those receiving receptive anal sex, it's hitting it along the way, right? And so, but that has its own preferences involved because it creates a sense of fullness, and a lot of guys do enjoy that. But in this instance, what his hand is doing is just putting pressure directly on the prostate.
Right.
That's actually how they test if you have any prostate issues later in life.
Okay.
And so if it's swollen in any way, your urologist will be able to know. So a lot of older guys around your 50s and 60s is when you start getting prostate checks, right? And so you're getting your first prostate checked very much this way. Like this is good for masturbation too.
Right.
But they're also checking to see if it's swollen.
But I thought if it was swollen, it means that like you're in enjoyment, right? So
well, it swells when you're but in the clinical setting, they're testing it to see if there's any abnormalities, if there's any bumps, anything, which could mean cancer.
Okay.
Right? And so that's what they're testing guys for, but guys are often and historically very against it. So they don't go to the doctor to see or to get tested because they're afraid of this whole thing. And if you've never had a finger in there, it's incredibly uncomfortable. Urologists are disproportionately male. And so
larger hands.
It creates a variety of environments that
fingers.
People it makes guys very uncomfortable if they've never done that.
Right.
And so that's aside from sex. In the sex environment, when you are aroused,
Right.
it does swell.
Right.
And so that's the same reason that you can put pressure there, pulse there. Vibrators are pretty common. There's small vibrators.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't
Yeah.
know men were using vibrators in the anus.
Definitely. The LGBT community has definitely created or
I've never even
been really
used a toy
progressive.
in my anus other
Yeah,
than
they're
a plug.
different pulsing. The same for a vaginal clitoral
Right.
stimulant. You can use in the anus, depending on what it's doing, right? You wouldn't want to use the rabbit
I was going to
say
say.
on the anus.
Also, I'd just be afraid to lose it in your rectum because once something's in your butt is like mine, and it just takes it. You know,
Well, it's because the sphincter
closes back up quick.
it does. It's
Oh, here you go.
Oh.
Okay.
There you go.
Interesting.
And so that specifically is pulsing in two different areas. So prostate area, but you see the other
On
pulse.
his balls?
It's under. in
Under the balls.
perineum.
Oh, that's where they love to be licked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like pressure there too.
Yeah.
Let's do big, broad strokes like that. Sure, every
Yeah.
guy. Probably not true.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of men I'm with are like, lick right here. Can you get? And then you like got to climb underneath them. It's a whole thing. You got balls
whole
falling in
system.
your face. But yeah, it's
Like,
a tough
hello,
place to
you're
get
missing
to.
my
Yeah.
lashes. Yeah.
Right.
They're too heavy on them.
Yes. I've definitely been trapped under some balls before. It's a difficult place to be. But yeah, okay. So that little area is also super sensitive.
Yeah, and so that is not going to necessarily impact it's not the same as a prostate orgasm, but it's certainly for some guys.
Who don't want the finger up there, that's probably their spot.
For some, yeah, but
Okay.
it's really a conversation. A lot
Right,
of the things
right.
that we're talking
Of
about in
course.
this
Yeah.
podcast it's a conversation to have. And some guys might not be willing to, one, have the conversation, or
Right.
two, admit to some of those things. And so that's where it becomes problematic, our old ideals of what it meant to be a
Right.
man and what that meant if you like that kind of stuff.
Right.
But not liking that kind of stuff is its own problem,
Right.
right? Or not
Not wanting to be
those things.
exploratory.
Sure.
In your sex life in general, I think is definitely a problem. And that's how you get bored. And it's why, you know.
Right.
But I do want to say, just because there were some fun little things that you put down here. So once you do get inside that rectum, so movements to make is obviously the come hither, the
So
doorbell.
the reason
Okay.
for the come hither,
Yeah.
what you were doing is exactly right. So you're actually coming from behind. You're coming
like
from
if
the
I have
front.
his penis here and his butt is here, I'm going behind like this.
You're
come
coming
hither.
this way,
Yeah.
right? Because you're trying to get to exactly where the prostate is,
Right.
Right, and it's not very far in or any of those things. And
Two
so,
knuckles.
yeah, pretty much,
2 knuckles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good information.
Yeah.
And so it's walnut shaped,
Okay.
and there's let's just say walnut shaped.
And then you said there's the doorbell.
There's the doorbell.
Okay.
That you're coming in from a different position.
Right. Coming in
right,
from
right.
behind and pressing the doorbell.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Then you have the circling motion, which is that can get extra intense,
Okay.
much like come hither.
That's the one I want to do.
Well, it can become too much. Too much stimulation, and too much stimulation for anybody is not necessarily where you
Right,
want to be. So you have to
right.
find kind of the right balance. You don't want to like get down and hit it hard,
Right.
or too much for too long.
Okay.
Right? It's in addition to other things.
Okay.
Right.
Probably the best
So
way to go.
easy circles.
Yeah, you don't need to be aggressive with those circles, I'd say.
Okay. And then the stimulated vibration, that's what you're talking about, is using the toy.
Yeah. And there's lots of different variations. There's ones that only go in. There's ones that are in and outside, like the picture we just saw. So there's a bunch of different options. There's very thin ones. There's like those small little tubes. Some women use it as a clitoral stimulant as
Okay.
well. Those work too because they're not long. They're very thin, which might be helpful for someone that's never experienced anal sex.
Right.
Right.
And so it could be a good starting point, guys.
Let's start it off, guys.
Boom.
I'm loving it. I'm going to go home. I have so many different new ways to masturbate.
Yeah,
I'm so
I know.
excited. Well, anything else? Any other ways that we need to talk about masturbation before I close this out?
Not ways per se, but just pretty much where you started, where it really is a healthy
Right.
part of our sexual being. And so talking about it and being open about it and being open to trying new things with our
Yeah.
partners, with ourselves, knowing our bodies, all
With
of
your
those
pillows.
things
Yeah.
are really couch
Faucets.
corners,
Yeah.
faucets.
Right.
Yeah.
All of those things are really important if we want to be healthy sexual beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And happy people.
And because it impacts our mental health.
Yeah.
No
And so-
shame. No shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
100%.
important.
All right, guys, finding new ways to masturbate. We've got all the answers for you. Thank you, Dr. Eddie, for all of your amazing advice. We really appreciate you. We're all going to be trying out doorbell methods from here on out.
Come hither. I'm
yeah.
Like, okay.
New
I'm
le-
coming.
New
Trust me.
lessons learned. Yeah, absolutely. Monterey, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Monarey M, and then you can also find me on YouTube, Monarey Martinez, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We really appreciate all your input and your early development and really getting the word out. We appreciate you for that.
I do what I can.
Until next time, you guys, click that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Adios.